Activity is expected to have bounced back in the fourth quarter of last year following disruptions caused by the July unrest in the third quarter. Stats South Africa expected to release the fourth quarter GDP data, anticipated to show a rebound of around 2%, up from a contraction of 1.5% in the third quarter. The economy is expected to have recorded a 4.8% growth as a whole in 2021. Now that is a glowing figure, almost 5% growth. But let's put this all into context. We're joined by economics editor at SABC News, Tshepo Mongoai. Great to have you with us, as always. So it sounds really good, but we always talk about the base effect. It depends where you come from and what you're comparing to, basically.
I mean, we know that the period that is under review, third quarter, that's where we saw the unrest in July. And then a lot of sectors were quite severely affected by that. So as a result, we saw a contraction in economic output, where we saw GDP contracting by around 1.5%. Now, going into the fourth quarter, we saw some improvement. This despite the fact that we saw Omicron, resulting in many South Africa being not being able to travel overseas, and load shedding in the fourth quarter that took out some steam. But we managed to pull it through. That is why you see most of economists now, they're focusing, you mentioned a figure of around 4.8%. That's what we're expecting. We know that many South Africans were indoors for the longest time, and when the restrictions were relaxed, we saw many of them hitting the road, traveling to many destinations. Well, unfortunately, not many foreign tourists came into the country. It was mainly us driving these activities. Many people flooded to the shopping malls. And we saw the numbers as well in terms of retail sales numbers. That is really going to be what drives this fourth quarter number.
So we saw a lot of sectors bouncing back, basically, like tourism. And then the figure for the year as a whole, correct me if I'm wrong, but we still have to see that in context as a comparison with 2020. Where economic growth was severely affected by COVID-19 and other things in that year as well.
It's important to contextualize, but remember Stats SA took a decision that they're no longer going to annualize these numbers because of this volatility that we saw following the outbreak of COVID-19, that sometimes, you know, you're not comparing apples with apples. So they are not really focusing on that, but we know that 2020 we saw a contraction, I think around 7%. So that was a huge drop in our economy. So there are expectations perhaps going into 2022, you would have seen that globally there was some huge improvement, and we're going to ride on that global economic improvement. But unfortunately, we're seeing that this war in Russia is actually starting to change the picture into 2022. We might not realize those numbers. Unfortunately, we're seeing that inflation is becoming to become a serious threat to the outlook, and we know that what it does, it takes away the disposable income that you and I have, so we end up spending most of our money elsewhere.
And let's be clear, already expectations were being tempered in the budget, so we're not going to see 4.8% this year or next year or the next year. That is seen as a good number, but growth going forward very moderate. We are well below global growth. And now Ukraine, although some sectors still doing okay.
Some sectors are doing okay. We'll mention mining. Mining is benefiting from what we're seeing at the moment in terms of the war because of commodity prices that have actually surged in recent weeks. So it's actually good for South Africa. We saw in the budget that part of our contribution in revenue actually came from the mining industry. So hopefully that, but it's, you know, it's a double-edged, you know. So we do expect that obviously as this commodity price go up, it also takes along with oil price, as you've seen there, touching around 140, but coming down slightly, quite volatile. But we will see a clear picture. I mean, it has breached 120, and then one wonders what could be the next psychological level in terms of the oil price and whether it will sustain that level.
And maybe the miners, I mean, they stopped us having tax hikes in this budget. Maybe that will happen again. But like you say, transport costs affecting everybody's pocket. We'll watch those GDP numbers out tomorrow. Thank you for contextualizing for us, Tshepo Mongoai, economics editor here at SABC News.